Alright, so the next 3 episodes, numbers 4 through 6 of The Legend of Vox Machina, are dropping on Amazon Prime. The bloody violence continues, but is the story progressing in a captivating way? Our band of heroes is now on the pursuit of the Briarwoods to clear their name, and Percy is pursuing his own vendetta against them as well. So to quickly recap, the first 2 episodes of the series introduce us to Vox Machina, a band of semi-friends who love to drink and fight. They do some work for a kingdom to save it from a dragon threat, and then get more involved in some of the dealings of the kingdom. Now, episode 3 is really where the story begins, as we get to learn more about Percy and how his personality was shaped. When he encounters the people that killed his family, this renewed rage awakens, and he is now hellbent on revenge. When episode 3 ended and we were thrust further into Percy's story, I was totally hooked. And I love how these next 3 episodes continue building on his character. He's really complex, and even he's a tortured soul. His whole life has been about gaining vengeance, and these current episodes move us towards that. And I think this storyline is very compelling. I mean, sure, it is dark because it involves basically the slaughter of a family, but I really enjoy how this shapes Percy. And then, what the heck is up with him in that plague mask? I mean, when we first saw that in episode 3, I was trying to figure out what it means. And we do see a bit more in these next 3, but I'm still pretty much in the dark. But I love the aesthetic that it creates, turning a fairly level-headed person into a machine of pure vengeance. Now, there is a very bloody and exciting fight in episode 4 where the stakes just seem insurmountable. Well, I was pretty sure everybody of Vox is going to survive. I wasn't 100% certain. I mean, the enemies were really dangerous and they had some awesome abilities. In episode 5, there's an element of the hobbits going to Isengard, which may or may not be intentional, but it's still a nice nod nonetheless. And this episode also introduces some creatures that feel like they'd be right at home in Attack on Titan. I mean, they're designed well and sufficiently unsettling with a lot of potential danger for our heroes. Okay, so there's something that I noticed in the first 3 episodes and then it was repeated in these current 3 that made me laugh, but I'm probably the only one. I mean, my brain just works this way. Vax calls Pike Pickle, and whenever he does that, I hear Barbara talking to Shaun in Shaun of the Dead. I mean, I know that's completely random, but guess what? Welcome to my brain. Each episode continues to offer up an epic battle sequence that's violent, bloody, and full of danger for Vox, and I'm really loving the animation. I mean, I know it's not necessarily anything that we haven't seen before, but the way that the show will use darkness adds a very creepy experience to the storyline. Now, there were a couple of times, though, that when these darker scenes were happening, I was having a little trouble seeing everything. Now, that just could have been because there was too much light coming into the room. But the creatures and enemies that we get to experience are nasty and creative, and they bring a lot of violence with them that's captured well throughout the animation. And there are a couple of creatures in one of the episodes that feel like they're a cross between some J.J. Abrams monster and the creatures that live on Avatar's Pandora. And when they're mixed together, we get some fairly freaky visuals. Now, a small detail that I really like is when the light will reflect off of Percy's glasses, obscuring his eyes, but it gives it this really bright shine. I mean, it's still not wholly original, but it looks great. The humor is still present throughout, and I'm glad that people in the comments of my last review clued me into Scanlan's growth arc, so that we should begin to watch him progress out of his juvenile humor and into something more mature. Now, I'm not sure if he gets more sophisticated, and if that would even feel natural, but I'm looking forward to watching his full progression play out. The relationships within the group are fun and still somewhat dysfunctional, which adds its own level of humor along with a good team dynamic. And they're not always on the same page, which is relatable, but when they need to, they can count on each other. And in a few of the scenes, I got chills at how characters stepped up. Now, I'm still really enjoying the musical score in this show. The driving guitars and pounding drums amp up the adrenaline and help to make exciting scenes pulsate with energy. Following in the footsteps of the first 3 episodes, there are a few guest voice actors in these 3 that you might recognize. There's Dominic Monaghan, Rory McCann, and Stephen Root. Now, I really love the main cast, but it's also fun to hear new voices pop in and out of the show. Now, I like where the story is headed, and because of the complication the group encountered in episode 3, in episode 4 we see more ramifications of that, and how a specific character has to make some choices that it could affect the entire group. The story is branching off a little during this, but not so much that it feels like it's a distraction. And I'm pretty certain that this sub-story is going to be building towards something with massive consequences and then future ramifications. I'll just have to patiently watch how it plays out. And I'm sure that those of you who have followed Critical Role have way more insight into the story than I do, especially because I'm experiencing this show as the episodes play out without any other context or background. And for me, I think it's good because then I can help determine if the story works for the uninitiated like me. And I'm very happy to say that thus far, the story is amazing with compelling drama and a very engaging storyline. There's a good mix of action and mystery to keep me wondering where this is going to lead, but I also never feel like I can't get a handle on the content. So if you haven't started this show yet and have been on the fence, you can now binge 6 episodes all at once and have a very enjoyable watching experience. The episodes continue to be about 23 minutes long, so it's not a massive time commitment. But I think if you're a fan of this style of fantasy storytelling and you also like adult themed animation, you're going to get hooked on the characters and their quest. There's sex, nudity, a lot of profanity, and a ton of bloody violence. I give episodes 4 through 6 of The Legend of Vox Machina 4.5 out of 5 couches. So, what have you thought of the show so far? Do you have a favorite character? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.